Yeah.
We are now live on Facebook. Hello, friends on Facebook. This is Aaron Price, the CEO of TechUnited New Jersey, formerly the New Jersey Tech Council. We are built to empower innovators, instigators, and entrepreneurs to propel the future. Thrilled to have with us today Phil Goldfeder, the Senior Vice President of Public Affairs at Cross River Bank. How you doing, Phil?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've also started the webinar itself, so people are signing on. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us. In case you missed that intro, my name is Aaron Price. I'm the CEO of TechUnited New Jersey. I'm here with Phil Goldfeder, SVP of Public Affairs at Cross River Bank. Really excited to talk about all things New Jersey, Fintech, PPP, and more. Before we do, let me set a few ground rules. So for those of you who are joining us today, normally in person, we encourage lots of interaction and networking among attendees. It's a little bit trickier when it's a virtual event. So please do go into the chat. And I see some familiar names here who've done this with us before, so hopefully you'll lead the way. But go into the chat, introduce yourself, share maybe where you are geographically, and anything that you might be able to help others with or something that you're looking for help with yourself. Use that chat as a way to network. In the Q&A is where I will be paying a little bit more attention and taking questions that we can use to guide this conversation. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. If you, to network in general, jump into that chat and say hello. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Phil, where are you actually? Hello, Michael. Where are you physically today?
I am proud to be in Fort Lee today. I mean, if the light wouldn't mess the video up, I'd show you my beautiful New Jersey view. It's great to be back. Look, as a tech company, we're able to easily transition to home, but there's nothing like being here and sort of, some of my colleagues are back, not all. We're not fully open yet, but it's just nice to be back to a bit of normalcy.
Is today, how many days have you been in the office?
Today is my 4th day. It's been sporadic. We're trying to, we don't want everybody here all at one time. And so, we set a schedule. So I'm here today. I won't be here tomorrow or Monday, but back on Tuesday. So it's some, trying to make sure that there's a consistency amongst people here, but at the same time, we don't want to overwhelm the building, our staff, and so on. We want to make sure that we're staying safe.
Totally get it. Can you share with people, before we get into some of these questions, a little bit more about Cross River? I think there's such a fascinating story here because I think it's such a great example of a more traditional business that's really turned into a leading technology business. So can you share a little bit more about Cross River Bank?
Yeah, Cross River Bank is only about 12 years old. As a matter of fact, June 23rd was our 12th birthday. We opened our branch in Teaneck, New Jersey, in northern New Jersey on June 23rd in 2008. And so we just hit our 12th birthday. I feel like there's a nice 12-year Scotch gift in there, Aaron.
I would love one. Thank you.
And so we were, Cross River was born in the Great Recession. And for those of you who remember the, sort of post-recession, there was a significant lack of access to financial services. I mean, banks were kind of, figuring out what to do to clean up the troubled assets and the damage that was caused by the recession. And there was a lack of access to capital, lack of access to basic financial services, because even community banks were reeling and sort of pulling out of the market. It was an interesting time. I think a lot of people question, maybe is that the right time to open up a brand new bank? But we kind of, again, as you'll hear a bit more later, it's kind of in our DNA to lean in to the challenge. And so we opened the bank, and the beauty is that we understood the new regulatory structure. We didn't have to deal with 100 years of legacy systems or sort of the damage that had been done. We were able to come in with kind of a fresh balance sheet and more importantly, a fresh outlook on financial services and how to offer it. And so our bread and butter was our local community. I mean, we were born in the community to serve the community, to find ways to offer services to the people who didn't have it. The beauty was sort of where we were is we also recognized that it's important to innovate, to find new ways to reach that community, not just expect that everybody's going to walk into our branch, even though there's always coffee and cookies there. And I welcome everybody. Well, maybe not now, but when the world gets back to normal and everybody's
a lot more than cookies, by the way. A pretty fully stocked, awesome situation you have happening over
there. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I welcome people to come check it out. We recognized that we needed to find ways to innovate. And over the last, in 2010 was our first partnership. As a matter of fact, I'm very proud. I'm most proud. if you take a look behind me, there's a New Jersey Biz article that is the first mention publicly of our partnership with technology, and it's from 2010. And I keep it on my wall as a reminder of where we start, but not as, we're good. It's a question of how do we keep propelling ourselves to the next level. And so over the last 10 years, we've really built our own technology stack to enable us to continue to provide access to services to people in the community here in New Jersey, but really all across the country. In addition, we've really come up with a way to partner with technology companies to really reach the masses, to ensure that, when you hear of new technologies and they're engaged in financial services, that there's a bank on the back end, right? There's a trusted community bank that is there to ensure there's consumer protection, regulatory compliance, to make sure that there's a safe system, right? We appreciate the banking system, not just for the integrity of the system, but also to ensure that consumers who are accessing various items, whether it's the ride-sharing app they use or the point-of-sale loan they take out, whether they're in Walmart or buying a Peloton or so on. We're there as the trusted community bank behind the technology companies to offer those services in a safe, reliable way.
Are some of those, like for instance, the Peloton financing, is that actually powered by Cross River?
Yeah, so we partner with a company called Affirm. Affirm, all the loans are originated by Cross River. And the beauty of the partnership is we don't just partner with a company and wish them good luck. It's quite the opposite. There's a reason why we call them partnerships and not customers, right? A customer is you service them and let them go on their way. These partnerships are really rock solid, right? The idea is that the technology company on the front end is sort of plugging in directly to the technology that we have here at the bank, which enables us to ensure the rigorous compliance that our regulators here in New Jersey at New Jersey DOBI hold us to, and obviously the FDIC. And so we take that responsibility very, 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 very seriously. Got
it. Great. So I see there are some very specific questions about PPP I want to get to, which we will. As a reminder, network in the chat, share the questions in the Q&A. I did see a couple of questions in the chat. If you can pop into the Q&A, that certainly helps us stay focused. And hello to Esther and Yumi and Barry and a bunch of others who are active over there. What's been the experience for you with the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program? Because the bank really had to be, it seems, or at least from an outside perspective, on its toes, respond very quickly. Most of the headlines that I've seen are about the very large banks distributing huge amounts of loans here. But I know Cross River has been hugely active. So I'm curious if you could share a little bit about how, your experience so far and how you've stayed ahead of the curve here.
Yeah, I think again, and going back to what I said earlier in terms of understanding crisis, and instead of running to hide, we kind of lean into it to figure out what that service is, right? And so born out of the Great Recession, we understood it as soon as this hit. Number one, our technology enabled us to move to home pretty quickly. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the company for a minute, just in terms of the way they treated our employees and ensuring every employee had every piece of technology they needed to operate seamlessly at home. Flex scheduling, everything that one can do. In addition to that, offered every employee a $500 stipend to buy a new desk, buy a new computer, or if you had everything you needed, go out and get a massage to relax because of the stress that working from home may have caused. And so Cross River has just been a tremendous place to work for. And let me also say is that we continue to hire throughout. We hired 21 people since the beginning of COVID. And so we recognize a need. Cross River is still a growing company. And we also understand that while there may be a slight downturn, business is slowing down, we recognize that and we're hopeful that there'll be even a bigger upturn and that Q3 and Q4 will continue to get even better. And so with that, I think the reason we got into PPP was, once again, we recognized an opportunity where we could serve our local community without a question. And I think that really is generally what drives us, right? Finding ways to serve the people here in Fort Lee, in Teaneck, all across Bergen County and all across northern New Jersey. And I think that kind of what drove us to want to be in it. We talk about technology a lot, but a community bank, right? The trust reliability of a community bank combined with that technology really is what enabled us to take those next steps. And so interestingly enough is that it was a lot of the management team and employees came together and said, can we do this? You'd think that this would be a top-down approach. It was actually quite the opposite. Employees were reaching out to management and saying, hey, we saw this program. Do you think this is something we can do? Because my brother has a business, my friend has a business, my neighbor knows that I work at a bank and asked me about this. Do you think this is something? And so this was really employee driven. Our employees basically said, we're all willing to stop what we're doing and dig in, right? To understand what the rules are going to be, understand what the parameters are, and understand how to best serve and make these loans. And so I'm very proud that everybody in the bank, from engineers to technologists to bank tellers to compliance staff, basically all said, okay, we're all going to turn and shift what we're doing into this program and see if we can get it going. And so you had, I mean, our CEO was handling customer service calls just to understand and hear what some of the concerns and problems were. And we built, in the matter of days, our own proprietary sort of onboarding system where we can accept applications, where we can underwrite those applications, and we can seamlessly submit it to the SBA. Program opened April 3rd. We were open for applications on April 3rd. As many people
Just for context, the larger banks, how did they respond, and how were you ahead of them?
Again, I'll leave it for others to sort of come back and judge. I think you heard from a lot of major banks early on. I won't point anyone out, but the Wednesday or Thursday, April 1st, April 2nd, leading into what was supposed to be April 3rd, which was the opening date, we're not sure if what you heard from other banks was, we're not sure if we're going to get into this. We don't think we can do it. The profit margins aren't high enough. The economics don't work. For us, that was sort of an afterthought, right? Like, can we do it? Can we actually offer a program that is seamless, that will be accessible to people, that will work, right? Now, we recognized there was going to be issues. There always are. You're building a technology and you're opening up kind of a platform that in normal circumstances, and everybody listening to this in the tech world know, there is stages, right? There's 6 months before you go into testing, and then you have you beta test. And I mean, a program like this would have taken a year to really perfect, to get it right, that we had up and running in about 7 or 8 days. And so we recognized there were going to be issues, and the goal was to literally take our entire team of staff and turn them towards this to figure out how to resolve these issues, how to troubleshoot them. The first round of the program lasted about 10 days, and we served and were able to make a bit more than 10,000 loans, I believe, in those first 10 days. And partly is through our own proprietary technology, but also, as I mentioned earlier, we partnered with technology companies all across the country who you've all heard of and likely interacted with, whether it was Intuit, Divvy, Veeam, Gusto, payroll companies, different types of finance companies sort of who operate mostly in the tech world to offer their clients a service, right? This was about customer service.
Yeah. How many loans have you processed since that April 3rd?
So let me be clear, and I'm sure we're going to get this question. We're still open since April 3rd till today. The program ends on June 30th, and so we're still open. We've done, I think, as of this morning, 107,000 loans.
Wow.
We have not only originated more money than most banks in the country. I actually think we're number 15 in the dollar amount in which we've originated, but we're number 4 in sort of the amount of loans. And I think that's what we're most proud of. I'm proud of so many things, and I get the chills thinking about this. I'm proud of our staff, and I'm proud of what we were able to accomplish, and I'm proud of sort of where our priorities were, and that was to serve regardless of anything else. But by partnering with technology, and this is what I think is so key to your audience to hear, it was only our technology and our partners in the technology world that enabled us to serve 107,000 borrowers with a staff of 300, right? So think about that. You think about the biggest banks in the country have staffs of thousands and thousands, right? When you think about assets, right, banks are judged in their size by asset size. The biggest banks in the country are asset size $2 trillion. Cross River is considered a small community bank at $2 billion. And we were only bested, I believe, by Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, then Cross River in terms of quantity of loans. And here's the best part, and what I'm most proud of, our average loan size was less than $44,000. And wow. So you think about that. You think of the stories you hear in the news, sort of the stories that are not so great about sort of prioritizing your best customers and only lending to the biggest companies. Cross River lent to Main Street America, all across the country, from New Jersey all the way to California to Seattle to Rhode Island. We lent to Main Street America, to the smallest businesses. The majority of our loans went to businesses with less than 20 employees. And
That's
that
right.
you don't have to know more than that to know that we were really serving and servicing the people who needed us most.
Do you know how many of those loans went to New Jersey-based companies?
Yeah, I will get you the number in just a moment. It was about $30 million in loans went to New Jersey. It was I think between 2 and 3,000 loans here in New Jersey,
Got it.
which is a pretty significant number. New Jersey, I think, was our third highest state, um, behind a couple of others. And so, yeah, look, we went over the top here in New Jersey, right? Partnering with you and the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce and others, to sort of really get the message out that we were here, that we were open. Again, especially for New Jersey consumers and New Jersey businesses, a bank that's in your backyard, I think, gives you sort of that extra peace of mind. But to our customers that are maybe listening today that are in California, we're the same community bank, whether we're here or anywhere you are, and our ideals and our values sort of live up to that.
Yeah. I want to, because I know that there's so much need in the market right now. We'll come back to some of the broad discussion in a moment, but I want to ask a couple of the questions that have come in. One in particular from Paula, who mentioned that they offer a software solution for a vehicle sharing business. The company's called Damage ID, and she's wondering how PPP can cover her salaries or the salaries of the owner, and for how long. How do they apply for forgiveness? And I think this is generally available, but I still think it's worth mentioning some of the basics here to make sure that everyone is aware of what they can do and who and how they may qualify.
Yeah, and so if you have an employee, even one, if you're a sole proprietor, right? I have a business, it's just me. You're eligible, right? The idea here is think about what the name of the title is. We call it PPP, right? It's the Paycheck Protection Program, right? The goal is to try and keep people off unemployment, and keep them working to keep the economy going. And so it is a loan of up to $10 million. That is eligible to anybody who has a small business or any size business to cover paychecks, to cover your payroll. It's calculated at 2.5 times your payroll to cover payroll and potentially utilities and rent as well. And so 75, I take it back, I apologize, and this is sort of part of the challenge with the program. Congress changed the law, changed the rules. They passed a new bill last Thursday, which it used to be a 2-year term loan at 1%. Now it's actually a 5-year term loan at 1%, which is, I think, even more attractive to people who are questioning whether this was something. But up to 75%, I take it back, up to the entire loan is forgivable, as long as 60% is used for payroll and 40% is used for other things. And so if you can get up to 60% for payroll, then the entire loan is going to ultimately be forgiven. But if it's not, 5-year loan at 1%, I think a lot of the small business, even the smallest businesses, would say they would take that, on the with the hope that it gets forgiven, but ultimately it's still a really attractive loan. And so the program is still open, crossriver.com/PPP. I urge people to go. We've seen a bit of an uptick over the last few days. I think with the program winding down, people want to make sure they get it if there's an opportunity for them to take it. And so it's been exciting to service all types of companies.
So I know that you come from a background in government. There has been a lot of chatter about what could or should have been different about this. One frustration for us as TechUnited, formerly the New Jersey Tech Council, is we are a 501c6 nonprofit organization, which was excluded from this program, which was enormously frustrating. We are going to take an enormous financial hit because of the pandemic. I wonder if, what things come to mind for you that they might have done differently and what you might hope to see if there is a third round.
Yeah, it's similar to the way, people, again, in the first round, there were certain complaints that we got about our process. And so
that you got, or that the government forced?
I think it's a mixture of both, right? You have to understand, I think, when you look at what Cross River did in small business lending last year through the SBA, it was about $50 million, right? And you think about what we've done just in the last 3 months, we did, $5 billion, right? And so you think about that kind of scale, that kind of growth in the very compact timeline in which we did it. Remember, and this is, I think, what is so key, is that these are borrowers at this dollar amount that really had nowhere else to go, right? They were being turned away from every major bank. I mean, if you go to most banks today have stopped lending PPP, right? There's no reason for that, right? It's just, they don't want to anymore. It's not, again, going back to, it's not profitable. It's just, we're not getting the volume, so it's not worth it. We're opening till the last minute of the last day to serve every possible person who needs help. I mean, that's the goal. And so It's hard, and there's been a lot of criticism. There have of politicians, of the SBA about how it was rolled out. I give them credit for sort of coming up with the program. I think, look, a lot of things could have been different, but I think a lot of businesses were also helped. And the question you asked, I think, which is most important, is how do we continue to make it easier, right? So how do we make adjustments at this point, given what we know and what we've learned? And the answer is, I think at this stage, we have to start thinking about how we look to forgiveness. The whole point of Cross River's partnership with the SBA on this program was seamless opportunities for small business who just don't have the resources, right? There's a lot of stresses in your life right now. You don't have to worry about this. And so we tried to make it as seamless as possible. The challenge today is, how do I get that money forgiven? And the SBA has struggled to make it simple, right? And that's sort of, I think, for those of us in the technology world, we live by that, right? We're innovators. I loved what you said earlier. We're instigators, right? We're trying to change the system a bit and make things a bit easier than they otherwise or normally would be. And so I think the SBA is struggling. What we've said and what we've advocated strongly is to get the forgiveness process simple and almost sort of at some threshold. And the number that's being talked about in Congress today is maybe below 100,000 or below 150,000 is automatically forgiven, as long as you could show basic documents that you used it for the right purposes. And so I think if the SBA were to simplify this program to ensure that the 100,000 people or the over 100,000 people who borrowed from us have a much easier time, let it be forgiven. It went to my small business. Again, I'm not saying it should be a free for all, but sort of make that process as small as possible. And I would also be remiss if I didn't talk about, we talked a lot about the SBA and about the federal program, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk that I have, sort of given this position and what we've been doing, we've been following a lot of states and a lot of activities that other states have sort of put into place. There is no state that did more for its small businesses and its communities than New Jersey. I mean, Tim Sullivan and the New Jersey EDA have not stopped since the day this pandemic sort of hit, finding new, innovative, creative ways. I mean, they reached out to so many of us in the small business and banking world to talk about what can we offer and what kind of programs can we implement and how can New Jersey be helpful to that. I mean, people have heard me say this before and my staff makes fun of me, but we were born in Teaneck. That's where our branch opened on June 23rd, 2008. We were raised here in Fort Lee, and we've only been successful because of the help and the benefits of being right here in New Jersey. The governor's office, EDA, Choose New Jersey. I mean, everybody across the board have just been so supportive and so helpful and have really found new ways, right? Outside of the PPP program, I mean, the New Jersey EDA was offering lending programs of their own, which was unheard of in most states across the country. It's because I think Governor Murphy has just sort of instilled in his staff that our job here is to serve. It's not about politics. It's not about anything else. Our job is to find ways to help businesses who are struggling in the easiest possible way. And I give them all the credit in the world for that.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot, but I agree with you. They've been very aggressive on basically trying to give away as much money as they possibly could. I think it's helped a lot of businesses. A couple on the specifics, and then I have so many follow-up questions for you. But Yumi asks, she has a friend who she could benefit from the payroll protection program, but she speaks Spanish. Do you have the ability? Do you have a translator? Do you have it in Spanish? Will it work for her?
Yeah, she can go onto our website. If there's any questions, she should reach out to our customer service. And I think we speak many languages. I hesitate to put a number on how many languages, but we can definitely be helpful. She should reach out to go to the application, reach out to our customer service, and we'd be more than happy to help. Yeah.
On your point about some of the larger banks kind of throwing in the towel early on the program, how does this work for a bank, and how is it profitable?
So the bank is served, and we don't. It's interestingly enough, right? The question of whether it's profitable or not is still yet to be told. That story hasn't been written yet. I mean, we're hopeful. There is a fee that the SBA pays the banks to entice them. I mean, there's obviously a tremendous amount of work. I mean, literally our entire business is sort of slowed down in order to serve this. And so the SBA pays the banks to help service these loans. And we're going through, I think, that process now to determine what the fees are. Also, we work with a lot of tech companies, right? What we traditionally would call brokers. These are pretty interesting type of brokers. You're talking about the biggest tech companies in the world who sort of work through Cross River. we have to work with them, right? They also helped us sort of to acquire customers and acquire borrowers. And so that's, a lot of the fees are shared with them as well. In addition to when we needed help, and I want to say this to every tech company that's listening, we develop a lot of our tech in-house. We did an amazing event with Choose New Jersey, actually in Jerusalem, Israel in January, before all this started, talking about a technology development office we have there. We would like nothing more than find more local technology companies that we can partner with, whether it's in data security, whether it's in underwriting, whether it's in anti-money laundering or anything and anything across the board. I urge them to reach out. I mean, it would make us feel great to know that we're partnering with local companies, that we're servicing local companies, and we're finding new ways to create a tech atmosphere here in New Jersey. And again, sort of this one, and I wasn't asked to do it, right? But like Aaron has done an amazing job of bringing us together, right? Cross River is a bank, but we're probably more a technology company than anything else. And we're served by understanding sort of all the various strengths that are around us. And there are a tremendous amount. And I give Aaron and the entire staff at TechUnited a tremendous amount of credit for providing these opportunities to share what we're doing for me. And I've listened to many of these programs to hear what other people are doing. And in some cases, we've reached out. I can tell you, again, this is sort of goes to late 2019, but we watched a webinar that you put on. Well, it wasn't a webinar, it was a panel that you put on. And we met with one of those companies a week later to talk about how we can work together. And so this works. This really, really works. And people have to, like anything else, you have to lean into it, right? Don't wait for Aaron to reach out to you, reach out to him.
Well, I really appreciate that. And as you mentioned, it is very much a team effort. And so it's been a great experience to merge Propelify into the council. And now there's, the TechUnited brand, and we're really excited about what's ahead. But let's come back to you for a minute.
Yeah.
Especially around that New Jersey focus, what do you believe is the opportunity for us more regionally? We, with TechUnited New Jersey, we're obsessed with what are the differentiating strengths of the region. And we've launched an alliance around health tech with Hackensack Meridian, and we're looking for other partners there. An alliance around clean tech with PSC&G and looking for other partners there. We have another one with smart cities that we're announcing in the next week or so. But those are very deliberately built around what are the corporate strengths around New Jersey? How can we, TechUnited, bring the startup community and early stage technology community opportunity through those partnerships? This example you're sharing here with Cross River, like Cross River could be a potential client, investor, customer in these early stage companies. That's a leg up. That's a time savings. So what is the fintech opportunity for New Jersey, and how can we make sure that we create as much awareness around that as we can?
I like to think and Cross River grew in the technology space, not because one day we decided we're going to switch from traditional to technology. We grew organically, right? Slowly you build it up. To me, that means we got to start with our world-class universities. I mean, if you don't have to look very far to find some of the greatest educational facilities and universities in the entire world are right here in New Jersey. And we have been very proactive in reaching out, not just to recruit, because that would be the easy thing to do. That would be the easy way out. It's the opposite. We've reached out to the finance departments. We've reached out to the technology departments to offer our guidance, our assistance, our expertise to help in a pragmatic way train the next generation of New Jersey workforce for the companies that are right here in New Jersey. I don't want anybody to think, and let's be very, very clear, you don't need to go to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley for technology, and you don't need to go to New York for finance. New Jersey is the capital of fintech, right? And I can tell you that Choose New Jersey does an amazing, amazing job of selling us all over the country and all over the world. I think we have to do a good job ourselves, right? We have to be ambassadors for what we have. No one's going to talk about us if we don't talk about ourselves. Yeah. And that's not just sort of the public affairs person coming out of me. It's, we should be proud, right? The old, like, do you know who we are, right? We are a force to be reckoned with. Our universities, our companies, our collaborative spirit when it comes to government engagement. I think we really have a tremendous amount to offer. And I say this, and again, this sort of goes back to the public service sort of person in me, but we have a responsibility as a company to reach out, to be proactive, to find ways to help. And I think it's important, worth noting, in addition to PPP, which I think most people would have said, hey, that's what they're doing, like, let them do it. We did financial literacy classes. We partnered with Assemblyman Calabrese and Assemblywoman McKnight and elected officials all over the state to do financial literacy, to provide financial planning, to offer opportunities and do webinars with the SBA. We work with the NJEDA to do almost weekly webinars in terms of reaching as many people as possible to offer all kinds of assistance. I think you would agree that most people would have said, you guys are busy, don't worry about that stuff. It's quite the opposite. That's the stuff that drives everything else, right? It's sort of making the impact in your own backyard. I think that makes us successful. And my CEO loves to say this, is that a lot of companies, they become successful and like, oh, we're a successful company, we should do some charitable work and we should be out in the community. For us, it's exactly the opposite, right? We do all the good work in the community because that'll lead us to success. And as you can see, sort of in 2008 to where we are today, we've really kind of leaned into it, and it's worked out really, really well.
I mean, I think it's worth noting you're a New York person who's been sold on New Jersey, which...
Why would you tell that to anybody? Get me in trouble here.
Well, I was going to make fun of you, but really, I want to ask you, like, what's been a surprising part of your own story in this? Like, did you ever expect you'd be cheerleading New Jersey and working on this side of the bridge? I mean, because I know that you believe the things you're wholeheartedly the things you're sharing here, but I would have guessed that, before you started Cross River, you might have been a little skeptical.
Yeah, that is a loaded and dangerous question because I have to go home tonight, and I'm not sure if they're going to let me back across the bridge. I am born and raised in Queens, in Rockaway, probably the second best beach in the world, right next to the Jersey Shore. You see how I did that? I'm telling you, I'm not gonna be able to go home tonight. This is gonna be rough. The answer is it's from the heart. I think I came in a skeptic, like most people probably would, right? Like, well, come on, right? At some point we're gonna move, right? We're gonna go to New York. Again, I don't wanna make them blush, but the EDA, and working with the EDA and working with the governor's office could not have been smoother about what do you need? How can we be helpful? To me, whereas throughout my career, sometimes government is not as helpful. They tend to throw up barriers, right? Put up regulatory hurdles to get over. Here in New Jersey, the commissioner at New Jersey DOB has been nothing but welcoming. Now that doesn't mean it's do what you want. It's the opposite. They hold us to a very high standard. Cross River is held to the same standard that every community bank is held to. The difference is they take the time to understand what we do. They take to understand the time to understand how we protect our consumers, and they work with us to make sure that it's safer, better, more accessible. Same thing with the EDA, the same thing with the governor's office. I mean, New Jersey has really they've opened their arms to Cross River as a growing entity. And I have, what you said is true. I have a tremendous amount of background in government. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen an administration like Phil Murphy's, where it just sort of really, again, like I say about what we do in terms of leaning in, it's because of the way we were trained, right? You're trained by your parents. We were raised here in New Jersey. We were taught that, like, lean into issues, lean into problems, lean into the community, and you're going to get those solutions. And New Jersey has done an amazing job of responding.
That's great to hear. I'm back on some of the specifics here. Paula has a follow-up question about the forgiveness process. So she's wondering, how can they complete the forgiveness process? Like, I think there is some concern about, while taking a loan at 1% interest is an attractive offer, I think some people just don't want to take a loan if it ultimately is going to be a loan. So one part of it is, what is your confidence level that these will be forgiven? And two is, how do people make sure that they qualify and do the right steps so that if it is forgiven, that it did it the right way? Her question was, does she just need to make sure she uses 60% for payroll? I believe it's more than that, but if you have some insight into those who are going through the process of taking the loans and who want to make sure that they're forgiven, what should they be thinking about now?
So as you know, Aaron, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, right? And TechUnited is only good because you have amazing staff. I say the same thing here at Cross River, and I'll highlight two people in particular: Eugene Schwartzman in my office and Aaron Iovine in my office, who have been nonstop working with our partners in government. And the reason I start with that, and it relates to this question, is because as I mentioned earlier, in terms of what we can change, I think we have to find a way to make this the forgiveness and the servicing piece of these loans a bit easier. I think today, as it stands, it's a bit complicated. There's been some progress with sole proprietors and independent contractors, but for larger businesses or 5, 10, 15 employees, it's still not a simple process. Now, let me be clear. If you follow the parameters, 60% for payroll, and you follow the few parameters, I don't think you'll have trouble, but it's not a simple process. And I am optimistic that the federal government is going to act to try and make this simpler. And things, as I mentioned earlier, that I've seen is below 150,000, making it a simple one page and one or two documents to prove what you've done. And so I don't think the story is finished on that. And I will say that Eugene and Aaron are working nonstop around the clock with the SBA, with members of Congress, right? As one of the biggest producers of PPP loans in the entire country, is we have a voice, right? We have more borrowers than 99% of the banks across the country. And so we have a very powerful voice as it relates to the program. And we're using that to benefit borrowers all across New Jersey and all across the country who are a little hesitant. And I'm hopeful that this is a little bit reassuring and that people will take advantage. You'll never see terms like this again. And I know that, and I'll speak from my heart because I have my brother who runs a small business. I know you're struggling, and I know you don't know what's next. These are programs that are not looking, it's not gotcha, right? We're not looking, well, they only did 59.5%, and so we're gonna have to, go after them. I think that the government has the best intentions, and I know that sometimes sounds a little strange. The government has best intentions, and I can tell you from the bank's perspective, we're looking for every possible way to sort of make people eligible for the most they possibly can, right? With that in mind, that this, people are nervous and they're a little hesitant. And I'll sort of end with saying, in terms of the servicing, a bank of 300 people is going to be very difficult to service 107,000 loans, right? You wonder to yourself, like, how are you going to process all that paperwork? And so on the front end with the application, I mentioned we built some technology and we partner with technology companies that enabled us to do it. On the servicing end as well, we partnered with a company called Scratch. Also a technology servicing company. This is their core competency. This is what they do. They're in the servicing business. And so if you've taken a Cross River loan and you're wondering what's going to happen next, Scratch in the next few days and the next few weeks is going to reach out to you directly to tell you what you're going to need and what you're going to have to do in order to make sure that you're forgiven. But that is not us offloading the responsibility. I can't say that enough. Just like on the front end, where it wasn't like, okay, you build the application, we'll do our piece and then we'll ship it off. We take an active approach in everything that we do and every partnership that we bring on. And so if there's a question about Scratch or a question about servicing, don't hesitate to reach out to us to let us know how we can be helpful and how we can find ways to make this process as seamless as possible. But I think here's key, peace of mind, right? I think that's the biggest fear that we all have. If my company doesn't come back, what am I going to do? The idea is to use this money to try and keep those people, your employees, employed for as long as possible. And we'll see what's next. But as long as you do that, I'm confident that most of your loan will be forgiven, if not all.
Are you confident enough that you told your brother that he should apply?
He did. Yes, he absolutely did. My brother, two of my brothers, one is a bigger business than the other, but they both applied and they both received a loan. And trust me, if there was any issues with the program or any issues, they'd be reaching out the first. But I'm proud. I'm happy to say that one of my brothers has already been communicating with Scratch in terms of what documentation he has to hold and how he needs to proceed. And so far, so good. It's gone very, very well. And I hope that experience continues. And if it doesn't, again, we're the community bank next door, right? Reach out. We combine that warm and fuzzy feeling of the community bank with what is oftentimes seen or viewed as a scary world of online technology. It's really not. We're trying to do everything we can to keep this process as seamless as possible.
Someone's asked about the economic injury disaster loan, EIDL, and wondering how they could get that loan forgiven without having a PPP loan.
So that's the EIDL is a direct to SBA program, meaning you'd have to go to the SBA.gov to apply for it. If you take a PPP loan, there are implications about paying back that EIDL loan, but I can't speak to that program as it sort of just hasn't been something we've engaged too deep on.
That makes sense. Brian said that during the pandemic, the SBA was saying that they would provide up to $2 million at around 3.5%. Are these SBA loans of up to $2 million still available for a low interest rate?
So there's another program that the SBA and Treasury are rolling out called the Main Street Lending Program. The details are still being worked out. It's a program that I think initial information has already been disseminated. It is going to be an opportunity for a low interest loan. I think the terms are still being figured out, but I urge people who are still looking for other alternative options to do two things. Let me just say, and if I should have said this, talk to your community bank, right? A lot of community banks across New Jersey, potentially are offering programs regardless of the government. I know before SBA started, Cross River, to our customers and our local community, we were offering a $10,000 loan program, low interest, to try and just give people an opportunity. And so, explore government opportunities, but don't hesitate to reach out to your local bank. That being said, you should look out for the Main Street Lending Program, which will offer another opportunity for certain businesses to apply for low interest loans.
Yeah. As a quick program note, if you have questions, obviously I'm monitoring the Q&A, so feel free to pop them in there. I'm trying to watch the chat, but that gets a little challenging. What percentage of the 100 or so thousand loans 107, I think you said, what percentage of people who apply are getting approved for the loan?
So that's a trickier question, right? Because I think because there's so much unknown around the program, when people are exploring it, well, what is it? What are the parameters? And so people will go into the application, they'll fill out the first couple of pages, and then they'll go back and read the terms. And so it really is a question of what do you consider an application, right? From the question of pushing a button to submit everything, or sort of going through, and so
I would say if you're I don't know if you're eager to share these numbers, but I'm curious of those who go through the full process and actually submit. My question's rooted in risk assessment, right? I'm thinking that generally, when you go to approve loans, there's a certain rate of approval. And I'm curious how that compares to this rate of approval, because I'm assuming that you believe these are backed federally, and so your risk tolerance is significantly higher.
Yeah, it's less a question of the Cross River underwriting criteria, right? The government, the SBA has basically said, look, a lot of this is customer and borrower attestation, right? The customer is going to some extent, you have to trust them, because you're not doing if for any of the listeners who have been through an SBA loan, it's a lengthy process historically, right? This is not that, right? The documentation required is much less. And so you're seeing more people get through. It's a question of, and I'll say this, when you're doing things automated, there tend to be different issues, right? And I'll give you a funny example that came up just last week. There was a bank in Wisconsin that their bank statements have this, funny design on it. I don't know why, but it's not like a traditional bank statement that's on a white background and here's the paper, right? This bank statement had like mountains and design and art on it. And so when the algorithm and the system went to read the bank statement to ensure the information on the statement matches what was inputted in the application, it had an issue with that, right? And so this is a different type of, it's less of a question in terms of underwriting, more of a question of understanding the nuances of this working with technology and figuring out ways through that. And so I couldn't tell you the exact issue, but it's not a question of our unwillingness, or it's sort of making sure that we have the basic information we need to underwrite these loans. And the more of the issues we're having is sort of understanding, whether it's the systems that are reading it, or sometimes some applications need a human eyes, right? There's an anomaly, right? There's a question about, well, I didn't pay a salary in this month, but I paid it in that month. And so how do I calculate that? And it's a question about calculations. And so when the system was overwhelmed, and I think early on in the process, early April, and then when the system shut down, it opened up again, I think in late April, early May, there was a huge rush, right? Everybody was so afraid that the funds were going to run out. There was a huge rush. And so we were limited in how many manual reviews we could do, right? As a small bank, we're making a lot of loans. If you get through the automated system, and I could say, by the way, today, if your application is clean, you can apply today and likely have funding in your account by Friday, right? By tomorrow, by Monday. And so if you get through, and there's a percentage, I would say 10, 15% that get through quick. Some software, it takes a day or two to read through, and the software on its own sort of does the redos and does the checks. And so, it could take till Tuesday or Wednesday. But now, given that there's a bit of a I don't want to say slow down, because we've seen a bit of a rush in the last couple of days, but we've actually brought additional underwriters that can actually give more human looks. And so when the program first started, unfortunately, what we did was we said, look, if it can't get through, I'd rather tell you to go to another bank than say, wait for me to figure it out, right? Like, I want to give every borrower the opportunity to get the loan. And so if I can't work you through, the goal was to tell you I can't do it. Please go to another bank or to another system, right? Because if I were to if I were to keep you in my system, I would be doing you a disservice. And so we tried to be as aggressive as possible to let people at least know where they stand. Today, we actually have a bit more bandwidth and we're able to give more manual looks. And so instead of sending, sorry, our system can't read your application, I have a team of about 30 people that on a daily basis are clearing hundreds and hundreds of loans by giving them additional looks and looking at that example from Wisconsin. It's like, oh, this is why I didn't read it. And so they look at it, yep, it all makes sense, and they push it through. And so our goal is to serve as many borrowers as possible and find as many ways to do that.
So don't send in your bank statement printed on cheap.
Exactly. Or yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. Some state licenses, right? You ask for a license or identification. Some are easier when people take a picture in the flash and it reflects off, and then you'd be surprised. Not everybody is as technologically savvy, and so
I'm not surprised. You realize I'm everyone's go-to. Hey, my computer's broken, my phone doesn't work person. So
yeah, and so I can tell you that like there's been some. One day I'll have to write a book and go through some of the stories, but we've tried to help wherever we could, and that's our mission, that's our goal.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think to me it's the best way to demonstrate that is sort of this program. The reason we're in it is because our employees wanted to do it, and that should tell you something.
Is there a difference if someone applies to Cross River or applies to Chase? Is there any difference bank to bank of fee structure, of how it gets serviced? I mean, it sounds like here actually you are saying servicing does matter, and you've put measures in place to make sure you can service the scale of loans you have and actually give people the help they need. But the loan itself, if people are considering whether or not to apply, where to do so, this wasn't an intended question, but why should they consider Cross River over another bank?
Can I tell you something? And I get this question a lot, and people were kind of mystified when they get an email like, "Hey, I'm sorry we couldn't process your loan quickly. Here are 3 other places you can go to get it." People were like, "Why would you push me somewhere else? Don't you guys want my loan?" Or I was honest, is that no, our concern is that everybody gets a loan, right? People need the resources. They should get the resources they need. Coming to us, I mean, look, I want to say that we want to serve as many people as possible, but just because it's the right thing to do, not because of any other reason. And so, I can't speak for other banks or what they're doing and what their servicing looks like. I can tell you that we've worked very, very hard to make this process as seamless as possible for every single borrower. And so, I urge people to come to us. But if you're not getting the response, like, please, you are it's peace of mind, right? I urge you to go somewhere else or reach out to our customer service and see if there is a way that we can be helpful.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Let's get back to the New Jersey opportunity. We're going to wrap up right around or by 1 o'clock, just for those who are curious how much longer we're going to go. But a lot of our audience is based in New Jersey business owners. I think we all agree that we want to make sure that they get through this this very particular and intense time of struggle. For the longer term, where do you see the opportunity for New Jersey, and how can companies like Cross River, organizations like TechUnited help make that a reality?
So as I mentioned earlier, we haven't stopped hiring in all aspects of our business. Our goal is to continue to grow here in New Jersey. As I mentioned earlier, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority invested in us. And so it's our job now to take that money and reinvest it into the community. And so I think it's about collaboration, right? Because you're going to have a lot of companies that are going to struggle, that are going to have to figure out, how do you change your business model now? I've got to do things a bit differently in this new post-COVID world. Whenever that happens, hopefully sooner rather than later. I think it's finding reasonable ways to collaborate. And I think you couldn't be more timely with changing the logo and changing the name to TechUnited, right? It's not about a council of many. It's about united like one, right? It's a way that we need to find new ways to collaborate, to work together, to, even if it's your competitor. And I say this to other community banks all across New Jersey, come on in. Let me show you how we do it. Let me show you how we save money on this process and that process by automating it. It's not easy. Nothing is easy, right? For all the entrepreneurs out there, especially in the tech space, this is not easy. What we do is difficult. So you need to lean on others. And I think, TechUnited is going to play a very, very large part of that. And I give you all the credit in the world for really stepping up. And I think only thing I'm set up about is I was so proud that I saved from last year's dinner. I saved my button, but my logo is now outdated. So I'm going to have to get a new button.
We'll get new buttons. Don't worry. We got those are great. I was so psyched about those. NJIT did a 3D printing of those instead of name tags with like green, yellow stickers for those who haven't been to our gala, and that's how we designate different attendees. We printed those very cool magnets on wood with NJIT. When you talk about collaboration, like that's exactly what that was. We said we got to come up with something creative. NJIT said, well, maybe how about this? Michael from Tier Points is listening in as well, right? Another collaborative New Jersey partner.
Love Mike.
I think there's a scrappiness and I think an underdog mentality to this community that is eager to see us take what I think many of us see as our rightful position in this community. And not that I think that any of us think we should displace New York, or many of us live in this region because of the proximity to New York. But I think many of us would like to see us elevate the positioning of New Jersey, and that's certainly what we're intending to do through TechUnited. I also think you touched on a point on the lens of technology, right? Like you're in public affairs. I'm not a coder, though I can hang out a little bit, but that's not my skill set. To TechUnited, and I'm curious if this resonates with you, in thinking of the brand, we kept tech in the brand because we think it's a way in which people see the world. It's a way of problem solving. It's a way of thinking about things. It's how I believe that a company like Cross River, that's very small, 300 people, compared to somebody with $2 trillion in assets, can scale the solution, right? If it wasn't for technology, like this is a non-starter. You can't be a one, branch local bank and do what you're talking about here. And I think that's the power of what we see as the opportunity regionally, right? How can we use technology to see that lens? I'm curious if that's how Cross River thinks of it.
Yeah, that's exactly how we think about it, right? Like the only way, it's funny, people said, well, how did it feel to compete with some of the biggest banks in the country? I said, compete. I said, we beat the pants off of the biggest banks in the country. To be number 4 in terms of the entire country, and you think about the size of the banks and the investments they've made, and you read about this all the time. Sadly, you don't read about us too often. We're proud of, we had a great story in the New York Times this week. I urge everybody to go out and find it. It was a really, I think it was great for Cross River, but I think it was also great for New Jersey. Sort of kind of like, look at what we're doing right here in New Jersey. But the answer is that you hear a lot of big talk from big players about big spends on technology. Proof is in the pudding, right? We didn't compete. We literally beat the pants off the biggest. And when I say beat the pants off, that's not like, we made the most money or the most profitable. We served the most small businesses. That's at its core what community banking is all about. And so people say, well, as you emerge into technology, have you forgotten the ideals of community banking? It's the opposite. You merge both together to have the trust, reliability, safety of a community bank. I like the warm and fuzzy feeling of the community bank, combined with the innovative offerings of a technology that enable you to really shoot for the stars and do amazing things. And I'm proud that, and I hope, I've been in constant contact, and my team's been in constant contact with our local elected officials, and we hope that people are proud of us. And if they're not, to tell us why and how we can do better. We really want to be a bright, shining light here, sort of on the Jersey side, overlooking the George Washington Bridge, to do amazing things.
Well, we're very proud of all the work you guys have done in response to this pandemic, and thrilled to have you as a partner here. Anna earlier shared the New York Times story in the chat. I see Mike shared it again here, and we appreciate your comments, Mike. And Paula, being able to respond to some of your questions and hopefully reduce some of your fear there. If you're looking for a loan, go to crossriverbank.com/PPP. You can reach out to Phil. I'm sure he'll get you in the right hands if you have questions. But I know he does mean it when he says that the bank wants to help. I've seen it in the way they've shown up at New Jersey Tech Council events in the past, how they've shown up at Propellify Innovation Festival in the past. And it's a refreshing approach where I think it's an interesting dynamic where, to me, this is the kind of stuff that gets exciting about technology. A relatively stale traditional business gets turned on its head, or industry gets turned on its head, and a small group of people make a lot of noise. And I think that's a very exciting thing to be a part of, and to be part of this community. So we certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, look, and again, like I said, we can't do it without you. We can't do it without our friends here in the state of New Jersey, our colleagues. This has been we believe in the collaborative effect, sort of a rising tide raises all ships, right? And that's the goal here for our colleagues and friends in New Jersey, for all the tech companies, and especially to the tech community, right? We're always looking for new partnerships, new ideas, new ways to surf in the fintech community. So don't hesitate, reach out.
It sounds almost as if we need to launch a Fintech alliance and get the Cross River logo as our main sponsor there. It's just an idea that came to me as we're talking. Maybe we'll follow up on that.
Yeah, it's that's interesting. I've never heard that one before. Look, again, Aaron, to you and your team, it's a pleasure. We are part of many organizations who rest on their laurels, who don't like, this idea that you need to innovate always. You don't stop innovating. Oh, we did this 10 years ago, we're good. No, the idea is to keep innovating, keep refreshing yourselves. You should be very proud of what you've accomplished and your staff. I mean, I know that again, you and I both, we don't do any of the work. Our staff really does a tremendous amount of work, and I'm very proud to be your partner and be a partner of TechUnited.
I really do appreciate that. We've set a very high bar, and the team knows we're pushing aggressively with relatively small or limited resources, and so I really appreciate the feedback, and you can expect more good things with or without your logo on them. We really appreciate having you involved, regardless. Normally, this is the part of the show where I would get my phone and we do a selfie on stage. But since we're not on stage, we're going to smile and then do a high five. Now, we've done this with every show. I know that this is a little weird if you're sitting at home or wherever you are, maybe with your phone listening in. We always do the stand up high five your neighbor at our events. This is a little trickier because you can't do it physically. But I still want you, when I get to 3, we're going to do the smile so we can get a nice screenshot and look all pretty for our moms. But then do the high five. And all of you at home, I hope you'll join us. If you're signing out, you're going to get asked to fill out a survey. Please fill out these surveys. This is how we measure how we're doing as an organization. We look at every comment. We measure every stat. This is how we're trying to up level what we can do as TechUnited New Jersey and what we can do for the region. So please do spend some time with that survey. We absolutely appreciate the high ranks, but if you have things you'd like to see improved.
If I was no good, tell me.
What's that?
If I was no good, I hope they'll tell me.
That's right. We really would like you to fill out those surveys. This was recorded. We'll share it on our site later. We'll share little social media clips. Follow us at We Are TechUnited on your social media platform of choice. And with that, we're going to smile and high five on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Hopefully we got a screenshot. If Jasmine's fast enough to tell me, if we don't have to do it again, got it.
I'm still smiling.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks Cross River for sponsoring today's show. We really appreciate it. Stay safe, have fun at the office, and we will see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.